Alzheimer's disease, for decades, it's been one of the most heartbreaking and just frustrating puzzles in all of medicine. We're going to unpack why we've been stuck for so long and take a look at a completely new map that might, just might, finally show us the way forward. Okay, let's get into it.
Think about this. For over 100 years, ever since Dr. Alois Alzheimer first put a name to it way back in 1906, the world's best and brightest have been trying to crack this thing. A full century of effort. And the money! My gosh, the money we've thrown at this problem is just staggering. We're talking a global investment of more than $80 billion. That's a monumental, historic effort. But here's the kicker. Despite all that time, all that brainpower, all that treasure, the result has been, well, it's been brutal. The clinical trial failure rate has been a jaw-dropping 99%. Over 400 different drugs tested, and they've pretty much all failed. So you have to ask, right? How? How could we be so wrong for so long? This wasn't because people weren't trying hard enough or weren't smart enough. Something else was fundamentally broken. So what was it? And, what do we do now?
The truth is, these weren't just a bunch of unlucky failures. They were all connected. They happened because, for the better part of a century, our researchers were basically trying to navigate a jungle with a map of the desert. The map itself was flawed. And here it is, the absolute crucial point. Our whole strategy was to attack the things we could see, the amyloid plaques in the brain. But we were doing it in patients who were already sick. The real problem? Those plaques, they started forming 20, maybe even 30 years earlier. It's like showing up with a bucket of water after the entire house has already burned to the ground. Now, this whole way of thinking didn't come out of nowhere. You can trace it back through the history of medicine. We went from, ancient ideas about balancing humors to the 19th century obsession with germs. And then in the 20th century, we got really focused on finding one single broken molecule, one bad gene to fix. Each step got more specific, yeah, but also way more narrow-minded. So let's take a look at how this old, kind of reductionist map was applied to Alzheimer's, and how it led us down a very, very long and incredibly expensive dead-end street. And this slide really nails the difference. The old approach, let's call it Epoch 3, was like being a molecular sniper. You pick one target, in this case amyloid, and you try to blast it away, long after the war's already been lost. The new approach, Epoch 4, is totally different. It's like being a systems conductor, trying to make sure the entire orchestra of your biology stays in tune from the very beginning. And this right here, this quote, is a light bulb moment. We made a huge mistake. We thought the equation was simple. Plaques equals disease. But it's not. It turns out tons of people walk around with amyloid plaques in their brain and are perfectly fine, no symptoms at all. The disease isn't deterministic. It's probabilistic. It's about the whole system becoming fragile and collapsing, not just one part going bad. Okay, so if the old map is busted, what's the new one look like? Well, it's a whole new framework for thinking about health, and it's called Epoch 4. Think of it like a new compass that helps us see the body for what it is, a complex, deeply interconnected system. So let's break down its parts. First up, E is for energy. This is the absolute foundation. It's the fuel that runs everything. Your brain is a power-hungry organ. With Alzheimer's, it's like the brain's power grid has been suffering from little blackouts for years and years, slowly damaging everything, long before the final, catastrophic power failure. Next, we've got I for information. This is basically our biological software, the code that tells our body what to do. A disease is often just a bug in that code. In Alzheimer's, you get these corrupted signals that cause chaos, telling the brain's own immune system to attack healthy tissue, creating chronic, damaging inflammation. Then there's T for terrain. This is the actual environment your cells live in. You can think of it like the soil in a garden. Is it rich and healthy, or is it toxic and depleted? A degraded brain terrain, full of inflammation, poor blood flow, well, that creates the perfect breeding ground for disease to flourish. All right, next is delta, which stands for dynamic action. This is all about time, change, and flow. A healthy body is dynamic, it adapts, it's like a flowing river. But disease is what happens when that river either floods and becomes chaotic, or it dries up and becomes stagnant. Alzheimer's isn't a sudden event. It's that river slowly, almost invisibly, slowing to a trickle over decades. And finally, all of these things, the energy, the information, the terrain, the dynamics, they all come together to create psi, which is the overall state of the system. This is the big picture. Health isn't about one perfect part. It's about the whole system working together in harmony. Disease is what happens when that harmony breaks down and the whole system starts to collapse. Now, I know this might all sound a bit abstract, right? But this new way of thinking is already changing how we do medicine in the real world. It's helping us create a kind of medicine that can actually learn and adapt just like our bodies do. Just look at clinical trials. On the left, you've got the old way: rigid, slow, expensive, testing one single thing at a time. But on the right, you see the new adaptive model. It's flexible. It learns as it goes. It can test multiple treatments at once, and it can quickly figure out what's working and what's not, which saves an incredible amount of time, money, and most importantly, lives. And we don't have to look far for proof. Remember the COVID-19 pandemic? Huge adaptive trials like REMAP-CAP were total game changers. They figured out which drugs actually saved lives, like common corticosteroids, in a matter of months. That's a process that would normally take the better part of a decade. It was incredible.
Okay, so let's circle all the way back. How does this new Epoch 4 compass, this new way of thinking, actually help us solve the Alzheimer's puzzle? Well, it starts by completely changing our focus. And this quote says it all. We were fighting the wrong battle, on the wrong battlefield at the wrong time. The whole game isn't about clearing plaques out of a 75-year-old's brain. It's about making sure the system never gets fragile enough to collapse in a 45-year-old.
So when you look at Alzheimer's through this new lens, it just clicks. You see, it's not a plaque disease. It's a systemic collapse. It's an energy crisis that starts decades early. It's a cascade of misinformation. It's the slow decay of the brain's terrain. And it's all happening dynamically over a 30 or 40-year time frame where timing is absolutely everything. And when you see it that way, the path forward becomes, well, it becomes obvious, doesn't it? We have to stop trying to fix the catastrophe after it happens. The focus has to shift to early holistic prevention, to monitoring the whole system for the very first signs of trouble and stepping in then, not 30 years later. And this really leaves us with a fascinating final thought. Maybe we've been asking the wrong question this whole time. Instead of just focusing on how to cure a disease once it shows up, what if the real future of medicine is about engineering resilience, about understanding these complex systems so well that we can keep them strong and stable for an entire lifetime? Now that's a goal worth fighting for.